My name is Abby, and I am a member of the Food Allergy Life Teen Advisory Group Project. A little bit about me: I am from Buffalo, New York. I'm 18 years old, so I just graduated high school, and I will be starting college at Vassar in the fall, which is super exciting. I'm allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, dairy, egg, beef, pork, shellfish, legumes, some seeds like sunflower seeds, flax seeds, bananas, garlic, and some pitted fruits. I think I hit it all. Today I'm going to be talking about OIT, which is also known as oral immunotherapy. In the past, the treatment of food allergies has mainly included avoiding the allergen and then administering a shot of epinephrine during anaphylaxis. So there is not really a cure for food allergies. You kind of just have to avoid what you're allergic to, and then if you are having an allergic reaction, give yourself the EpiPen. But OIT is kind of a new way of desensitizing yourself to food allergies. Like I said, it's a newer treatment, and it is allowing people to actually ingest foods that they are allergic to. So in this treatment, people's bodies are gradually desensitized to their allergens. So the way this works is people are given really small amounts of the food they're allergic to, and this small amount is very gradually increased either in the allergist office or in a clinical research setting over a period of months or potentially years. The OIT process typically begins with a day of rapid desensitization. So during this day, you go into the allergist office where you stay there for like 4 to 6 hours, and you're given multiple doses of the food you're allergic to. So this rapid desensitization happens over a period of 4 to 6 hours. And this is kind of like the start of your OIT process, this day where you just start off really, really small with like 1/200th of a peanut. Or for me personally, I did OIT with milk. So on my first day, it was not pure milk, it was milk mixed with water, and I had like a syringe, and the allergist was kind of just giving me like super tiny drops of the liquid that was inside the syringe, which was the milk mixed with water. So it's really, really small. And you start off at the allergist office having that super small dose, then they'll kind of wait a little while, give you a slightly bigger dose, wait a little while, make sure you're okay, make sure you're not having a reaction, give you a little more, and you kind of like repeat that process for those 4 to 6 hours on that first day of the OIT process. And after that first appointment, patients are required to return to the office either every week or every other week for an updose, which is an increased dose from their last appointment. In my case, I started off with that super tiny amount of milk and water mixed together given to me out of that syringe. So after I leave the allergist office that day, I go home. I have to take that every single day until I go back to the allergist office either next week or the week after. And then when I go back, that's when you increase it to a slightly higher dose. So say I start off at like 0.01 milliliters. Maybe the next time I would go up to like 0.03. So every time you go back to the allergist office, you're increasing that dose a tiny, tiny bit. And that's really what the OIT process is. It's really desensitizing your body gradually over a long period of time. So you're not going to have as severe of a reaction if you were to potentially ingest food you're allergic to or eat something that has been cross-contaminated. So yeah, the goal of this treatment is to raise the threshold that may trigger a reaction and provide food allergic individuals with protection against accidental ingestion of the foods that they're allergic to. It was designed to make people with food allergies less sensitive to the foods that they are allergic to. So cross-contamination from a factory or different exposures would be less likely to cause severe allergic reactions or anaphylaxis. Although OIT has been very successful for many people, it has over an 85% success rate, it is not guaranteed to work the same way for everyone. Some people may be able to fully incorporate foods that they're allergic to into their diet, Like, they could go through the process of OIT, going back to the allergist's office every week, updosing, and they may get to a point where they are able to tolerate whatever food it is that they're allergic to. They can incorporate that into their diet. However, that is not the case for other people. Other people may have to stop treatment. Some people may be able to tolerate treatment but not actually incorporate that food into their diet every day. Some people may reach a point that requires them to generally avoid the food, but allows them to no longer be concerned with the risk of cross-contamination. That's really what happened for me. And I will touch on that later in the video and talk about my experience more. But it's really important for me to emphasize that OIT is not a cure for food allergies. This treatment is meant to help people have a better threshold so that if they accidentally ate something that had a little bit of their allergen in it, they wouldn't have a reaction, or the reaction wouldn't be as bad. Even though some people are able to incorporate that food into their diet, that's really not the goal of the treatment. The goal of the treatment is to protect you from having a severe reaction. The allergy is really still there. It doesn't go away as a result of doing OIT, especially if you stop treatment. If you stop dosing every day, the allergen can quickly come back if the therapy is interrupted. So it's really important to continue dosing every day, even after you get to the highest dose. The severity of someone's food allergy does not prevent them from being a good candidate for OIT. If you're a class 5 for peanuts, you can do OIT. If you're a class 2 for peanuts, you can do OIT. At my allergist's office, there have been people that are higher than a class 5 that have done OIT. It really doesn't matter how allergic you are. That does not prevent you from being able to be a candidate for this kind of treatment. However, people with certain conditions may not be able to undergo this program. I'm going to try to read these without mispronouncing them. But eosinophilic esophagitis, food protein-induced enterocolitis syndrome, idiopathic anaphylaxis, or mast cell activation syndrome. People with those conditions may not be able to undergo this treatment. It's really important for me to emphasize that if you decide to undergo this treatment, if you decide to partake in OIT and see if it will work for you, there are a lot of lifestyle changes that you have to be aware of when you're thinking about, is this for me? You really have to follow all of the rules very strictly, and there are a lot of rules that come along with being a candidate for this process. So if you're doing OIT, you have to be willing to visit the allergist's office either once a week or once every other week. So it's a very big time commitment, and this goes on for a very long time. When I was doing OIT for my milk allergy, I was going to the allergist's office for over a year for my updoses. So it's not something that you're like, okay, I'm gonna go in for a couple weeks and then be done with it. It's very much a big time commitment, and it takes a long time to get through the treatment. Like I said before, you'll go to the allergist's office once a week or once every other week for the updoses, which is that increased dosage from where you were before. So in between these updoses, you have to do the maintenance dose every day at home. So let's say I updose at the allergist's office to 0.03 milliliters of milk. I have to take 0.3 milliliters of milk every day at home on my own until I go back to the allergist's office. So I updosed on Wednesdays. So I would get that increased dose on Wednesdays. I would continue to take that dose every single day throughout that week until next Wednesday, when I would go back to the allergist's office and then increase to say like 0.05 milliliters. So you have to be willing to dose every day at home in order to keep this process going and have it work properly for you. There are a lot of rules about when you can dose and kind of like the circumstances surrounding dosing at home. You have to avoid an elevation in body temperature for 2 to 4 hours after you dose at home. That means no exercise, no hot showers during that time period. You're also not allowed to sleep the hour after the dose is given, and doses must always be given 21 to 27 hours apart. So there's kind of like a 3-hour gap if I took my dose at home at 10 o'clock in the morning, the next day the earliest I could take my dose would be 8. The latest I could take my dose would be 1 in the afternoon. So it kind of has to be given at a very similar time every single day. Also, doses can never be given on an empty stomach. You really have to have a carb-heavy meal before doing OIT. My rule at my allergist office was you have to have that meal at least 30 minutes before you updose or dose at home. Patients with environmental allergies, asthma, and eczema must have those conditions be under good control before starting their OIT process as well. It was recommended to me to eat either applesauce or an apple after dosing or updosing, and to also rinse my mouth out with water in order to prevent stomach pain and an itchy mouth or itchy throat. It's really, really common for people undergoing this treatment to experience a lot of negative side effects as a result of ingesting these foods that they're allergic to. Typical side effects involve the GI tract. Symptoms include abdominal pain, vomiting, and stomach cramping. And it's also really common for patients to get rashes, hives, itchy mouth, itchy throat, swelling, and wheezing. Although a lot of doctors and nurses do everything they can to minimize the risk of a serious reaction happening, it's definitely still possible for a serious reaction to happen while you're doing this process because you are ingesting food that you're allergic to. It's also possible for the development of eosinophilic esophagitis to occur as a result of pursuing OIT treatment, so that's something to keep in mind too. It's definitely possible for patients to go into anaphylactic shock if they have a reaction as a result of OIT. And this is why it's really, really crucial to have medical professionals around when you're updosing, because that's really when a lot of the reactions tend to happen when you're going from one dose to an increased dose, because you're ingesting more of the allergen. So your body isn't used to that higher dose, which is why that's when reactions tend to happen, and why updoses must be done at either a clinic, an allergist office, somewhere where doctors are around to help you if you need it. So although there are a lot of negative side effects that can come along with undergoing OIT treatment, there are a lot of positive results that come out of it as well. It really can be life-changing for people, especially if you're able to get to the point where you can incorporate food that you're allergic to into your everyday diet. Parents have emphasized how OIT has brought them more peace of mind because they don't have to be as worried about cross-contamination. They don't have to be as worried about a serious reaction occurring because they know that because of OIT, the tolerance level is increased, and if their child was to ingest a little bit of a certain food, or if they were to eat something that had been cross-contaminated, the likelihood of them having that serious reaction is really lessened. Kids who have gone through the OIT process often have a lot less anxiety about potentially eating something that they are allergic to because they know that a little bite of it might not hurt them as much as it would have before they had done OIT. So now a little bit about my experience. I started OIT for my dairy allergy in February of 2020, so last year. And my updose appointments resulted in me having to miss school like every other week. I went every other week for my updoses because my allergist was worried about the milk upsetting my stomach. So I went every other week for my updoses, and I went Wednesday mornings. So pretty much every other Wednesday, I would be missing class. I would kind of go in later that day. I would be there for like a half day of school, but I would miss my morning Wednesday classes every other week. And dosing at home can definitely become slightly annoying. If I wanted to exercise or go to dance early in the morning, that became something that was an issue because say I had an early dance rehearsal. If I had a rehearsal starting at 10, I would have to have my OIT dose at least 2 hours before I would start exercising. So that meant no sleeping in. I would have to be up at 7 something, have my OIT by 8 so I could start dancing at 10. So that became slightly annoying too. I remember one time I was going into the allergist office to updose, and I got really annoyed because you do have to eat 30 minutes before dosing or updosing, and that particular day, I had to wait longer in the waiting room at the allergist office before dosing, and as a result of that increased wait time, I moved out of that 30-minute window where you're supposed to eat before having your dose. So because it had been longer than 30 minutes, I had to go home, make a new sandwich, come back to the allergist's office, and then eat that sandwich. Even though I just had breakfast and it was like 9 in the morning, I had to have a sandwich because it's so important for you to eat at the most 30 minutes before your up dose or your dose. I remember being annoyed when my family and I were on vacation in the Adirondacks because my dad wanted to get up early, have my family go on this hike, and I had to wake up at like the crack of dawn because I had to have breakfast and have my OIT dose in the morning, at least 2 hours before going on the hike. So it can definitely become annoying if you're someone that likes to exercise in the morning. Up-dose appointments can be really, really anxiety-inducing. The fear of potentially having a reaction to something you're allergic to makes people really, really nervous while they're doing up doses, while they're dosing. It's scary to ingest something that you've been taught your whole life, like, I can't have this is dangerous, and then you're told to eat it or drink it. It's really scary, and there were definitely times where I cried during up-dose appointments because I was so anxious about it. The doses of milk that I took for my OIT also started causing me to have really severe stomach pain and stomach cramping. There were certain days I would drive to school in the morning after dosing, and I would have such severe stomach pain that I would just kind of sit in a parking lot for a little while until it went away because I didn't want to go into school and potentially throw up. I was nervous about that happening. I was just in a lot of pain, almost to the point of tears, and so I would kind of sit in the parking lot, then go into school tardy because my stomach hurt so bad from my dose. And this kind of resulted in me having to go on an anti-reflux pill because I started having a lot of stomach problems with taking this milk. And also because I was having so many stomach problems, I had to stop once I got to 60 milliliters of milk. So I would say I started with less than 0.03 milliliters of milk. Like I said before, initially I started with milk mixed with water. It was extremely small amounts that were given to me through a syringe. And I was able to get up to 60 milliliters of milk. That was where I stopped, and that's a quarter cup of milk. The full dose of milk that you can get up to is 200 milliliters, which is a cup. That was kind of the end goal for me, was to get up to that, having that cup of milk every day. But because I was having so many stomach problems, the allergist decided it would be best for me to stop at 60 because they didn't want me to keep up dosing and then have more problems and then have to kind of like scale back anyway. So that's an example of, the process working to some degree, but also I can't incorporate milk into my everyday diet. Like, I can't drink a glass of milk whenever I want to. Yes, I have my quarter cup of milk every day, and I'm also now able to tolerate milk and baked goods, which is really exciting. But I can't just eat whatever I want that has dairy in it. I still have to be cautious because the process has allowed me to tolerate a decent amount of milk, but not to the point where it's safe for me to incorporate it into everything I eat. So for me, I would say the process was definitely worth it because tolerating dairy in baked goods is definitely better than not being able to tolerate any dairy at all. And if I had accidentally ingested something with milk in it prior to undergoing this treatment, I would have had a severe anaphylactic reaction. However, now that probably wouldn't be the case because I've gotten so used to having my 60 milliliters of milk every day that my body tolerates it more now than it used to. So in conclusion, if you are thinking about potentially trying OIT, if it's something that you're interested in, something that you've been considering and kind of like, should I do it, should I not do it? I would say you have to really be willing to follow all of the rules. You have to be willing to put the time in, and you might experience some discomfort in regards to anxiety and certain negative side effects. You have to accept that it may not work for you, that you may have to stop, and that you may have a reaction. But if you do give it a try and it ends up going well and working for you, you may end up being able to tolerate new foods or having to worry less about cross-contamination. from my experience, it's definitely something that is worth considering and worth trying out. Thank you so much for watching this video. My email is right here at the bottom of the screen, so if you have any questions about this process, what it's like, more about my experience, please feel free to email me and I'm happy to give you as much help as I can. Thank you again for watching.